The world has changed. The competition for jobs is real. But this shouldn't discourage us. It should challenge us. Remember, for all the hits we've taken these last few years, for all the naysayers predicting our decline, America still has the largest, most prosperous economy in the world. No workers are more productive than ours. No country has more successful companies or grants more patents to inventors and entrepreneurs. We're the home to the world's best colleges and universities, where more students come to study than any place on earth. What's more, we are the first nation to be founded for the sake of an idea. The idea that each of us deserves the chance to shape our own destiny.
You heard him. The U.S. is still the largest, most, best. It's an old theme and, frankly, a bipartisan one. Alexis de Tocqueville identified America as a, quote, distinct species of mankind. Sarah Palin headed a chapter in her book, America the Exceptional. And there was the president, Tuesday night, plugging into exceptionalism, looking again to loosen that juice. We do big things. The future is ours to win. Is there a problem with that kind of talk? Well, to discuss it, Richard Wolff, professor of economics, emeritus, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and author of Capitalism Hits the Fan, the Global Economic Meltdown and What to Do About It, and also Grit TV regular Maya Wiley, executive director of the Center for Social Inclusion. I mean, that stuff is good, isn't it? It makes you feel good. It's a chilly night out there. The economy is grim. To know that this country is best kind of warms the cockles. Isn't that the idea, Maya?
Well, I think the short answer is it's complicated. On one level, of course, we all love this country. I have the two most exceptional children on the face of the planet.
Right.
Right? And it's a good thing that I feel like I have the most exceptional children on the face of the planet. And it's good if we feel strongly about the importance of our nation, about its possibility. That aspect is good. I think what's complicated is what's behind it. What do we mean by it? Do we mean that we're free to go and bomb other countries with no regard to human life in those countries, and with some question about whether we have a full understanding of the balance of world power and our part in it? Those are very different kinds of issues, and I think the complicated part about American exceptionalism is it means different things to different people.
Yeah. Now, it did seem to be the number one most consistent selling point in yesterday's State of the Union. I'm not quite sure what Obama was selling, though. Right.
Yeah, it was wonderful as a pep rally, but I'm not sure America at this moment in its history has mostly need of a pep rally. It might need to be a bit more honest in facing its own problems. I was struck in this speech by two things that were missing. The first one was saying something to the 20 to 30 million Americans today that either have no job, are working part-time when they need a full-time job, or have given up even looking. Those people heard almost nothing. Is the government going to do something for them? No. Is the government going to offer them the jobs they need? No. The government is going, according to our president, to do things to stimulate the private sector to hire them.
But he says, Barack Obama says, it's going to be in boosting trade that we create jobs. Take a listen.
Many people watching tonight can probably remember a time when finding a good job meant showing up at a nearby factory or a business downtown. You didn't always need a degree, and your competition was pretty much limited to your neighbors. If you worked hard, chances are you'd have a job for life with a decent paycheck and good benefits. The rules have changed. In a single generation, revolutions in technology have transformed the way we live, work, and do business. Steel mills that once needed 1,000 workers can now do the same work with 100. Today, just about any company can set up shop, hire workers, and sell their products wherever there's an internet connection.
And that trade thing has been a mantra all week. Rick, what's the problem?
It hasn't worked. We've been relying on the private sector to hire the unemployed for 2 years now, and it does not work. And there is no reason in economics or in the projections that I can see or that my colleagues can see to believe it will work in the future. Relying on the private sector is not an adequate response to the unemployment if you feel a commitment to all that that does to our economy, to have that many millions of people without work.
Is it enough to just acknowledge people are reeling from change, Maya?
I think it's important to acknowledge. I actually think people do need to hear it. I mean, I agree with much of what you said. The one thing I think I would take issue with is I think we do need a pep rally. I think we need a pep rally, and I think part of what the president was doing was trying to create a pep rally, hopefully to create some energy for some of the hard decisions we have to make. I think the point of what are our hard decisions, and I think this is one of them. You know, we know from the past that one of the best ways to get people back to work is for all of us to collectivize our ability to do that, which is the government, which is saying, we need roads, guess who builds them? The government does, which means if we build more roads, we need people to do that. But we also need more local options. So I think this point about not only relying on trade, one of the most important things about the president's speech, I think, was his comments about infrastructure investment. But we also needed to be at a community scale, not just to rely on very, very large corporations.
But you talk about the things that we as a state have done in the past to try to even the playing field or advance or grow, retain leadership, if you will. I mean, I talked about this yesterday on the program, whether it's regulation or corporate taxation, let alone industrial planning. I mean, all of that seems toxic today. It certainly didn't get a mention yesterday. Stimulus talk. Dead. Is that right, Rick?
Yes, and if you think about it, let me give you one example of where that crisis is hitting. The last stimulus spent a lot of money helping cities and states across the country who are having terrible budget crises. The president said nothing yesterday about any further stimulus, and the old one is running out. It plunges every city and every state into a crisis, and they're all responding by cutting. And by the way, one of the things they're cutting are public schools at the elementary and secondary level and public higher education. The notion that we're going to be competitive in the future while we cut the single most important institution of our training of our young people is crazy. And all the talk about initiative and innovation is undermined by not doing something about what every city and every state is struggling with, and that will hurt our competitiveness far more than anything this president can get through an obstreperous Congress, which is what he faces.
Talk about the other part of even that clip that we played at the top. On the one, there's this kind of assertion of leadership. On the other, there's this discussion of an idea, that the U.S. is a country founded on an idea. Where would you like that conversation to go, Maya? And is there something to be said about that idea, at least, of fair treatment for everybody?
I think that idea is critically important. Of course, the problem is that idea and American exceptionalism often excluded a whole bunch of us that were actually explicitly excluded from that idea. And I think what was important about one of the things that the president was trying to do in his speech was both say, we actually need to see the benefits in all our people. Now, one of the things that we confront, and one of the things that's troubling about some of the ways we hear this idea, and you'll remember it when actually Anderson Cooper took on Bachmann, when she actually completely falsely stated that we've always done this. Right. And it's actually, no, we had to actually face very hard decisions. We had to fight for it. We had to be willing to have very hard conversations with one another to create job equality, to assure that women and people of color could enter the workforce and be treated fairly in it. The attack on public jobs, we don't talk about it a lot, but one of the reasons it's under attack is that most of the people, particularly in large cities, who are public employees are Black and Latino. We don't talk about that very much, but as the country becomes majority people of color, we better talk about whether the majority of the country is actually included in our solutions.
Michelle Bachmann also talked about exceptionalism last night, and this is my favorite quote of the evening. Take a look.
We believe in lower taxes. We believe in a limited view of government and exceptionalism in America. And I believe that America is the indispensable nation of the world. Just the creation of this nation itself was a miracle. Who can say that we won't see a miracle again?
Who can say we won't see a miracle again? I love it. And it goes to exactly what you're saying. Now I want the two of you to talk about what's the alternative. I mean, is there a way as a state leader to talk about your country in a way that isn't we are best? Because he certainly has his detractors, and they're running on this talk of American, the big, the best, the beautiful? People on the right.
Well, I think one of the things you have to face is that we are exceptional these days, not only in the nice and happy things, but in things that are not so good. Is our government active? Yeah, but one of the most remarkable things around the world is that we're the one government that is able and willing to send untold numbers of people all across the world to fight wars that even the majority of the American people do not support, do not understand, and would rather see the money spent in much more socially useful ways. I think that has to be confronted as a kind of fundamental question about an alternative path that I wish that president had pointed out for us, but really he didn't. And the other one is a direct intervention in the economy. I remind everyone again, in 1934, at a time of similar unemployment, the then President of the United States went on the radio and said, if the private sector either cannot or will not hire Americans who need and want to work, then there's no alternative but for the government to do that. I had hoped that President Obama would take that kind of leadership, put people back to work, able to earn a decent living, able to maintain their mortgage payments. We just saw that the housing market has dipped down again.
Yeah.
We need to face the basic questions.
We got about 30 seconds left, Maya. What are your hopes and expectations now?
Obama actually pointed to some really important interventions, and they don't do everything we need done, but I think in light of the fact that he faces the party of no, part of what he's trying to do is get the country to say, no, we want solutions. The country did not get founded without a government. The founding of the country was about creating a government that would help drive solutions for all of us. So that's what I think what was important about what he was trying to set up is, we're so exceptional, we can have a government that actually solves these problems. And that's the call to leadership that I think we need.
Maya Wiley and Rick Wolff, you can get more information about both of them and their work at our website, grittv.org.